skeptics say the forecasts of doom and gloom are overblown.
After you adjust for the fact that there's so many more people living in so many more places, there's no change in weather-related damages.
This guy is from an organization called the Cato Institute. I looked it up, and as it turns out, it's a far-right think tank, quote-unquote. This video is 10 years old, at least at this point, and it's a video of Bill Nye debating Marsha Blackburn on whether or not climate change is real. Now, going back 10 years and looking at what people were arguing at the time is fascinating to watch. And it doesn't surprise me at all that they'd get somebody from the Cato Institute, really, the Cato Institute, a right-wing think tank on to tell them that it's really not that dangerous. Just a joke, dude. These people will be viewed as monsters in the future, truthfully. They'll be viewed as possibly as bad as Hitler, responsible for countless deaths because of what they said and did knowingly, in my opinion. They'll be viewed very negatively. But anyway, and it's not even that far off. You know, we're going to have to deal with this problem one way or another. Before watching the debate, though, between these two, Bill Nye and Marsha Blackburn, I do want to say, I think we're going to get out of this jam with climate change. I think we're going to get out of it. The key to this is innovating our way out. Okay, I don't think that it's the kind of thing that we can like slowly reduce and improve here and there. We're going to have to come up with technologies that are capable of accomplishing the goals that we need. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but we already have all the technology that we need to go 100% green, carbon neutral. We don't need to use coal plants or oil fields or any of that other stuff anymore. We don't need it. It's possible to run nuclear power plants or wind power or hydroelectric dams or geothermal energy, a billion different options to use that don't use fossil fuels. Fossil fuels will eventually run out at some point, and they are destroying the planet. We need to switch. We need to. And do you know how much it would cost to switch for the United States, go completely carbon neutral? We could outfit our entire infrastructure in the United States for $6 trillion, is less than the cost of the Iraq War. Instead of killing people in Iraq, we could have outfitted our entire system as energy neutral, or I'm sorry, as a carbon neutral. Not at the time, we didn't have the technologies for it, but the point stands. Our debt is $30 trillion or somewhere in there right now. For $6 trillion, we could go completely carbon neutral, and then we could take all of the oil that we're digging out of the ground, 16 billion barrels per year, I think, or something, and sell them to other countries and make tons of money and be energy independent. Why the hell are we not doing this? You know why we're not doing this, in my opinion? Fossil fuel industries. I cannot think of another reason. There is no other explanation for why I'm sitting here watching a debate between Bill Nye and Marsha Blackburn about whether or not it's even real. With that being said, let's listen. This is from 2014. Quick interjection, this won't take long. I just want to say, if you want to support my channel, the best way you can do it is by watching this video to the end, or at least watching a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. YouTube's recommendation algorithm works off of watch time. You can also subscribe to the channel, like the video, and check out my Patreon. Link is in the description for that. All right, back to the video.
Bill Nye and Marsha Blackburn, welcome both of you to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you. Thanks, David.
I'm kind of unhappy with Meet the Press about the fact that they even invited this debate to take place. This shouldn't have even happened. The debate is over. There's no reason to debate this anymore at all.
So here was the Guardian newspaper after all of the flooding in the UK, and here's the headline: climate change is here now. It could lead to global conflict, yet the politicians squabble. In the scientific community, this is not really a debate about whether climate change is real. The consensus is that it is. The majority of those who believe, in fact, that it is caused by humans. There are certainly some in the scientific community who don't believe that's the case.
There are certainly members of the scientific community who don't believe that. Who? Are you talking about scientists that are actually literally employed by fossil fuel like companies like Exxon and BP and stuff? Is that who you're talking about? The broad consensus, 99% of scientists agree that this is a problem. As a matter of fact, you don't need to look at this politicized environment or these scientists that we have today, even though they're way more educated and trained in this area than we have been in human history. You can look at newspaper clippings from 100 years ago that were talking about this. One day, far in the future, fossil fuels could cause a problem for mankind.
And who are skeptical about some of those conclusions. But nevertheless, there is still this level of consensus. My question to begin with both of you is, in this moment of this kind of extreme weather moment, is it creating new urgency to act? Bill,
It absolutely should.
Nye, I'll start with you.
Well, I would say, yeah. And what I've always said, we need to do everything all at once. And this is an opportunity for the United States to innovate, to be the world leader in new technologies. That if you could invent a better battery, a better way to store electricity, you would change the world.
We have that stuff now. It was invented. We have what we need to be carbon neutral now. We don't have to we don't really have to innovate our way out of it anymore. Not really. We have to build it. We have to do it. Again, as Bill Nye says, we need to be the world leader. He says that because if we're the world leader in something, we're the tip of the spear. We are the leaders in the pack. We get a lot of the contracts and the money, and people look to us for advice. You know, it makes the United States stronger by doing so. And what does Marsha Blackburn want? Does she want a stronger America?
And if you were to do that in a way that you could manufacture and export it, you would also do very well financially.
Congresswoman, is there new urgency to act? You've heard the president in drought-stricken California saying that these weather emergencies, in effect, are creating the conditions that government has to act.
By the way, a quick note about Marsha Blackburn. If you didn't know, I believe, I'm going to fact check this, and if it stays in, then you know it's true. If you are hearing this right now, this is true. I believe that she's the one that came up with the term, what is a woman, originally. I think it was during a Supreme Court hearing to determine if Ketanji Brown Jackson was qualified or something. They asked her what a woman is. That was Marsha Blackburn, and that's when the entire trend caught fire.
David, I think that what it brings to mind is how we utilize the information that we have. And we all know...
Wait, it depends on how we utilize information we have? What? What is he talking, or what's she talking about here?
And we all know, and I think that Bill would probably agree with this, neither he nor I are a climate scientist. He is an engineer and actor. I am a member of Congress.
That's absolutely correct. So you know what you do in that case, since you're not an expert, I'm not an expert, and Bill Nye isn't an expert? Turn to the scientists. Ask them to lend you their expertise and tell you their thoughts on the subject. People who do know this stuff like the back of their hand have things to contribute. And what's Marsha Blackburn doing? She's lighting those contributions on fire. She does not care. She's making it out like, I'm not an expert, he's not an expert. That means it's a complete toss-up. I can say whatever I want, he can say whatever I want. It's equally as valid. No. Scientists have spoken and is absolutely unequivocally true. Climate change is happening. It's so embarrassing to see what was happening 10 years ago. Marsha Blackburn will be viewed as one of the most evil human beings in human history, in my opinion. She'll be up there.
And what we have to do is look at the information that we get from climate scientists. As you said, there is not agreement around the fact of exactly what is causing this.
Yes, there is. There is agreement over what's causing it, and there was agreement then. As a matter of fact, there was agreement in the early 1900s over what was going to cause climate change. Higher CO2 and methane emissions. Again, she's just trying to introduce doubt. That's it. She's trying to make you think that there's another alternative possibility or whatever. Either way, I don't care if there's something else causing it. It needs to be dealt with one way or another, right?
Exactly what is causing this. Even the president's own Science and Technology Office head, Mr. Holdren, says no one single weather event is due specifically to climate change. So,
yeah, that's how it works. Climate is an overall picture of individual weather events in a specific area. Of course, not any individual weather event is the result of climate change. Again, her whole goal is to introduce doubt. She just wants you to think that everything's a toss-up and that there's conflict in the community. There isn't. There simply isn't. There wasn't then either. 2014, okay? Obama was the president at the time. I remember them talking about this all the way back then, even though I wasn't politically involved. Still kind of young.
it drives the policy to look at cost-benefit analysis, what we do about it, and the impact that U.S. policy would have in a global environment.
Well, there's not going to be a U.S. economy if we don't fix this problem. So there's that.
And that's another question that I want to get to. But there is consensus, as you say, Congresswoman, there is some skepticism about the degree to which humans may cause climate change. Or can you specifically say an emergency, rather a weather event can be blamed on climate change? Some disagreement about that within the UK. Nevertheless, within the scientific community, there is consensus, Bill Nye, and, among the scientists themselves on both of those questions.
Yeah, scientific consensus. We don't have to wonder. Even back then, we knew. It's all about doubt. This is the exact same tactic, by the way, that flat earthers use. The goal isn't to present a new model that describes what is happening, that is contrary to the model that we are using right now. They're not offering us a new set of explanations, of overarching ideas. What they're offering to poke little holes. They just want to poke little holes in the existing explanation. And those holes that they poke, sometimes they don't even go through. Sometimes it's just nonsense. It bounces right off. Sometimes a couple of people will think that it ran through that paper anyways. They're trying to poke holes in things and cause problems and create doubt. That's the goal here. When I say they, I'm talking about the climate change deniers within Congress and the Senate, within government in general. That's who I'm talking about specifically, and in the press. These people just want to make you think that there's more to it than there really is. No, everybody understands this perfectly well. Flat earthers cannot offer an overarching model. Climate change denialists or whatever cannot offer an overarching model to explain the rise in CO2 and methane, to explain the reason why polar ice caps are falling apart, why, creatures are going extinct, why we used to see bugs hit our windshield and we don't anymore, things like that. There's no overarching description from them about what's happening right now. Something's happening. There's some things that we can visually verify personally. And for the past, I don't know, didn't, I think Carl Sagan spoke in front of Congress about climate change in the 1980s, didn't he? 1985. I thought it was that date. It was sticking out in my head. But yeah, 1985, he spoke to Congress about climate change. We've known it was happening for the past 45 years. Is that right? Wait. No, I'm sorry, 40 years. 40 years. We've known it was happening for the past 40 years. And we've also known what was causing it for the past 40 years. Exactly what was causing it. Here we have Marsha Blackburn poking those holes like a flat earther. Just doing everything she can to poke those little holes, Figure out, oh, look, there's a little spot right here I can poke. Poke. That's what she's doing. That's her whole thing. She's not offering solutions. She's not offering competing models. She's not telling us how she knows the information that she knows. She's simply trying to poke holes. That's it. She is, honestly, in my opinion, she is going down as one of the most reviled, evil people on planet Earth for this interview right here. eventually. Give it about 50 years, and people will be disgusted with what she did. How old is Marsha Blackburn? She's still in Congress, by the way. She's 71. Okay. By the time that rolls around, when she is an absolutely grotesque, evil human being and everybody recognizes her for that, she'll be dead. Unfortunately. I wish that she could live to see the day. Obviously, like, why would she care about the future? She just doesn't care. She's going to go with her oil baron buddies who are also in their 70s or 80s who want to get richer and more powerful and influential. And they'll be gone before it's a problem anyway. So who cares? Get rich or die trying, right? As they say.
Well, I got to say, once again, what people are doing is introducing the idea that scientific uncertainty, in this case about cold weather events in what we call back east, is the same as uncertainty about the whole idea of climate change. And this is unscientific. It's not logical. It is
right, creating doubt.
It is a way, apparently, that the fossil fuel industry has dealt with our politics, and this is not good. Everybody, you don't need a PhD in climate science to understand what's going on. That we have overwhelming evidence that climate is changing. That you cannot tie any one event to that is not the same as doubt about the whole thing.
But is the issue, Congresswoman, the cure or the disease, and what's worse? Here's the Atlantic.
Wait, is the issue the cure or the disease? I don't understand. So what would the cure be? I guess is he saying, is the issue using clean energy methods of like power generation, like hydroelectric dams and wind and solar power? That is an issue to him, apparently, for some reason. Is it that, or is it the problem, which is climate change? It's climate change. What? Why did he even ask such a question?
Magazine on some of the views within your party, within the Republican Party. On global warming, conservative policy positions often seem to be conflated or confused with rejection of the consensus that the planet has been warming due to human carbon emissions. Of the many Republican members of Congress I know personally, the vast majority do not reject the underlying science of global warming. The catch, conservatives believe many of the policies put forward to address the problem will lead to unacceptable levels of economic hardship.
I don't care. You know what else leads to economic hardship? Not having a planet to live on. That leads to a lot of economic hardship, for one thing. And for another thing, no, it would not lead to economic hardship. As a matter of fact, it would be incredibly stimulating to the economy for the government to simply spend $2 billion, which is a third of what we need to outfit our entire power grid in a renewable or with renewable sources. You know where that money would go? Do you think that you think that we'd put a windmill in the ground, like a wind turbine, and we would pop the top on that wind turbine, because they're really tall, right? So you go to the very top, take a little screwdriver, and you kind of pry the top open, right? The top flings off, and you take a duffel bag, and you just pour $3 trillion into that thing, and then drop a match. You think that's what's happening? You think that's what people are doing? That money is going into the economy. It's stimulative. It helps people. What do you mean, economic hardship? That doesn't make any sense. And they know this. These people, you can't convince me they don't know this. Conservatives, many conservatives, look, weasel words. Shouldn't be using weasel words ever. Specify who you're talking about every time, like I did earlier. Conservatives believe many of the policies put forward to address the problem will lead to unacceptable levels of economic hardship. Which conservatives believe that? We should pick them out and we should talk to them. What part of money having velocity do you consider to be economic hardship? Tell me where in that process you think economic hardship fits exactly. Just absurd.
The fix can be very expensive in the short term for long-term gain.
In the short term, it would be very expensive for the U.S. government, which we always borrow against.
Well, I think that what you have to do is look at what that warming is. And when you look at the fact that we have gone from 320 parts per million, 0.032 to 0.040, 400 parts per million.
Yeah, you know what other numbers we're dealing with? A blood alcohol level from 0.7 to 0.09. That's almost no increase at all, right? But it's the difference between drunk driving and legally sober driving. I mean, even though you're not exactly sober. There is a big difference between those numbers. We live in an extremely delicate ecosystem, which just got turned upside down. By us. By you, Marsha Blackburn, as a matter of fact, and all of your policies giving subsidies to and doing everything that you could for the oil industry. It was turned upside down, and now we have to deal with it. One tiny little itty-bitty number that's nearly insignificant to you. It seems so small, can change everything.
What you do is realize it's very slight. Now, there is not consensus, and you can look at the latest IPCC report and look at...
There is consensus. There was then, too.
Dr. Lindzen from MIT, his rejection of that, or Judith Curry, who recently, from Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I don't know who she's talking about. I don't know if those people are even real. Even if they are real, I don't know if they denied climate change, that they denied some report, or they denied what? I don't know. Did she just completely make this up? I have no idea. But we knew at the time that climate change was a problem. She is lying.
Is not consensus there. I think what we have to do...
Well, hold on. I just have to interrupt you. I'm sorry, Congressman. Let me just interrupt you because it's not...
Sure.
You can pick out particular skeptics, but you can't really say, can you, that the hundreds of scientists around the world who have looked at this have gotten together...
Thousands. Tens of thousands.
Conspired to manipulate data, and that industry folks like PG&E... Here's PG&E's website. Its current website...
Right. See what she's doing here? She's trying to introduce doubt. It's all about pushing doubt down people's throats. She picked out a few examples of people who honestly are likely made up. I have no idea if they, are part of a right-wing think tank or if they agree with it or what. I don't know. Or if they even exist. I have no clue. So she just starts listing off names like she's smart, and suddenly people are expected to believe her, completely ignoring the fact that people who are really out here in the field really working with this stuff every single day accept it for what it is and are trying to fix it, at least a little.
This is a natural gas producer in Northern California saying, as a provider of gas and electricity to millions of Californians and an emitter of greenhouse gases, PG&E is keenly aware of its responsibility to both manage its emissions and work constructively to advance policies that put our state and the country on a cost-effective path toward a low-carbon economy. So the issue is, what actions are taken when will they really work? First to you,
exactly
Congresswoman, and then let me have Bill Nye respond.
You're exactly right. And what you have to do, let's say everything that Bill says is wrong is wrong.
That's a propaganda technique she's using there. If she could have said, let's say that Bill Nye is right, she could have said that. She didn't want to frame it like that. She wanted to make it seem as though he's wrong. She wanted to associate his name with the word wrong. So she said it twice. She used a double negative to associate his name with something negative, something wrong. Instead of saying Bill Nye, let's say Bill Nye's right. She said, let's say everything Bill Nye says is wrong is wrong. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we see from politicians all the time. I watched Jeb Bush do this all through the 2016 election. He would accidentally, quote unquote, say a word that he didn't mean to say, supposedly, and then he would correct himself and say the right word, when he very obviously meant to slip in the wrong word. Or here's another one. In the election against John Fetterman and Oz, Dr. Oz or whatever his name, Mehmet Oz, they were running against each other in Pennsylvania for the senator position. Pictures kept coming out of Fetterman in, I don't know, clothes or doing whatever, just political propaganda against him or whatever. And bizarrely, every single picture, his skin was darkened. It was never lightened. It was always darkened. Who darkened that? Exactly. Who did it? Somebody must have. One instance of that I can chalk up to bad contrast. If I also at some point see an instance where his skin is much lighter, then I can definitely attribute it to bad contrast. But every picture, nearly, really, every picture, the dude looks like he has dark skin. Now, this stuff is intentional. Marsha Blackburn knows exactly what she's doing here.
Exactly right. And what you have to do, let's say everything that Bill says is wrong is wrong. Let's just say that. Then you say, what are you going to do about it? What would the policy be? And will that policy have an impact? Now,
for the record, I don't know why she even said that sentence. The reporter already said that sentence for her and asked her that question. She is repeating the question in a propagandistic way. Fantastic. Thank you for the propagandistic framing there, Marsha.
Policy have an impact. Now, even Director McCarthy from the EPA in answering questions from Congressman Pompeo before...
Do you catch what she's doing there? Pompeo was in the Trump administration. I think McCarthy was involved too to some degree, but she's picking out people that she thinks back up her point just to sow doubt. She doesn't want to create a new model. She doesn't want to prove that she has a better scientific understanding or any of that. She just wants to sow doubt. She just wants to poke those holes one after another. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. That's okay. Just keep poking them. Keep poking it. That's the goal here.
Our committee said reaching all of the 26 U.S. goals is not going to have an impact globally. And David, what we have to look at is the fact that you don't make good laws, sustainable laws, when you're making them on hypotheses or theories or unproven sciences.
No, you do make law off of theories, actually, because theories are the highest an idea can achieve, the highest level you get to. You derive laws, laws of science, like the law of gravity or whatever. You derive those types of laws from theories. Hypotheses are ideas that you might have that you test and you cross out. When it doesn't work, you modify, you change it. You throw it out, you get a new hypothesis until the model fits, until you have an understanding of what's going on. And then you test and test and test and test and test. You try to prove the model wrong. You find ways to falsify it. That's what peer review is. You want people to prove you wrong with this stuff. That's science. That's what we do in science. Ask people to prove us wrong. That's what happened with climate change. People submitted their peer-reviewed papers and asked others to prove that they were incorrect with what they were saying. And they simply could not. They simply couldn't prove it. They proved that the climate change model is absolutely correct and it is absolutely man-made. And it can be fixed tomorrow if we just got to work and did it. I mean, this person is an absolute scumbag. And I truthfully, honestly believe that she is going to be viewed as one of the most evil people in human history. I really think so. Give it a little bit of time, and I think we'll get there. Mitch McConnell and some of the other Republicans, if for no other reason than climate change alone, the entire Republican Party will be viewed as grotesque and evil, and it's not even going to take that long, in my opinion. Especially Donald Trump. He doesn't have much longer. Especially the older Republicans. They don't have much longer to, flip their position on it, which is inevitably going to happen. Republicans will flip their position on climate change eventually, or they'll just clamp it. They'll stop talking about it entirely and let Democrats run with it and try to fix the problem, one or the other. But, these older Republicans, they're not going to have an opportunity to try to shut their mouth or even set the record straight because they're going to be gone before then. So have fun with that really, really terrible reputation that you've just created for yourself. So let's play this video out with Bill Nye debunking what she just said.
Once again, the Congresswoman is trying to introduce doubt, and doubt in the whole idea of climate change. So what I would encourage everybody to do is back up and let's agree on the facts. Would you say that The Antarctic has less ice than it used to. When you asserted, Congresswoman, that a change from 320 to 400 parts per million is insignificant, my goodness, that's 30%. I mean, that's an enormous change, and it's changing the world, and that's just over the last few decades. You go back to 1750 with the...
I mean, this is called p hacking. What she did, she said it's 0.0001% of the atmosphere, and it went up to 0.0002 or something. I don't even remember what numbers she used. P hacking is where you manipulate statistics. You cut the end of a graph off, or you use a different metric of a graph to make it seem as though the graph backs up the point that you have. In reality, there's no way around the fact that it jumped from 320 parts per million to 320,000 parts per million to 400,000 parts per million. You can't deny that. That's just what it is. Well, she's trying to anyways.
Mentioned the steam engine. I mean, everybody's been over this a lot, but it's gone from 250 to 400. There is no debate in the scientific community. And I can encourage the Congresswoman to really look at the facts. You are our leader. We need you to change things, not deny what's happening.
Let me inject this
weather
point.
event.
I want to inject
this point. This weather event's important.
I want to stick to the point about what's going to happen in the future with policy.
Yeah.
The reality is that something is happening. And in whether you're along the...
She's got such a shit-eating grin that I have to imagine that this is going to be memed to hell when she is recognized as the deeply evil person she was for denying climate change, when you cannot convince me that she didn't know it was happening in this moment when she was talking to Bill Nye. Can't convince me.
East Coast, whether if you look at all the money that was spent on infrastructure after Hurricane Sandy, or you look at flooding, you have state and local governments, Congresswoman, who have to deal with the realities of climate change, and it's expensive. You're very concerned about the future of our debt. There's a lot of cost involved here. How does government responsibly, even where there may be differences on the policy and the cure, respond to the very real-time impacts of weather and a changing climate?
So what he just said was, there are going to be intense weather events that wreak absolute havoc. You remember Hurricane Katrina did, I don't know, what, $1.4 billion in damage or something like that? That's child's play. We haven't seen anything yet. And they're going to get even more frequent. They're going to wipe out coasts. Florida is going to disappear if we continue on this track, if we don't do something about it. Now, if the politicians all cooperated with each other right now, all of them in D.C., maybe we could do something about it. I think we could probably turn it around. We have the tech we need right now. We could set this whole thing up and fix it right now. But it's getting poor fools like this. I don't insult people. I don't like insulting people. But she knows what she's doing. You can't convince me. She doesn't. She knows what she's doing. We have poor fools like this in D.C. who are refusing to accept the facts of the matter, and it's disgusting. Telling you, man, she's going to be viewed as one of the most destructive human beings on planet Earth one day. Her and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump and all of them who knew climate change was happening and chose to do nothing about it intentionally. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I thought that was fascinating.